Welcome back to the deep dive. In any conflict, words can be weapons, but sometimes a statement is so absolute, so final, that it just cuts right through all the noise. Today, we're putting one of those claims under a microscope, a declaration of perfect, flawless honesty, and we're going to test it with a very disciplined structure. Let's get into it. And there it is. That's the sentence at the very heart of this entire thing. This isn't just a defense, it's a declaration, 100% truth. I mean, wow, that is a bold, bold claim, and it sets the bar about as high as it can possibly go. A claim like this, it just begs to be tested against the hard evidence. Okay, but before we get into the facts, let's look at something foundational here. This whole conflict really boils down to two completely different versions of reality. On one side, you have a truth that's based on personal conviction, right? The belief that what you intended to do is what actually happened. And on the other side, you've got a reality built from the documented record, contracts, legal filings, the official paper trail. This is the collision point. So to sort all this out, we're going to run 4 specific tests. We're going to put that 100% truth claim right up against the written record. And that structure, it's everything. It lets us get past all the he said, she said, and just look at what the documents actually say. It requires a lot of discipline, which is exactly why we stress that structure. Okay, let's unpack that. Test number 1, the relocation. This slide lays it out so simply it's kind of stark. On the left, you've got the rule, straight from the separation agreement. You need a written agreement or a court order before you move the kids. It's crystal clear. On the right, the action. The move just happened anyway. That's a direct contradiction, and it establishes a pattern right out of the gate. Now, in test 2, we see a very similar dynamic with the tax claim. Her position is absolute. I didn't claim RJ. But see, the counter-argument isn't about her intent. It's about the legal consequence of her actions. If the son's name was on the tax forms, well, then the law considers him claimed. The crucial thing here is that truth isn't always what you believe you did. It's what the legal system says happened. And this brings us to test 3, which really shows how these disputes can have these just devastating real-world consequences. It's like a 4-step chain reaction. The father says he made direct payments, but then those funds were allegedly diverted for other expenses, like braces, and they never got logged officially as child support. So the state system, all it sees is 0 payments. What does it do? It takes action and suspends his driver's license. It's a documented cause and effect spiral. Our final test might just be the most direct contradiction of them all. On the left, you see an email from November 2022, and it says, "I have given consent to waive all back child support." I mean, that seems pretty unambiguous, right? But the documented outcome on the right, the state enforcement agencies, they just kept on collecting. This pits a clear written statement of intent directly against the undeniable reality of what happened next. So after looking at these 4 tests, you have to start wondering how. How can these contradictions exist for so long? And that's when we have to zoom out from the personal fight and look at the system itself. This is where we find a fundamental glitch, a decade-long failure that the source material calls procedural gaslighting. Whoa. This slide reveals this massive gap between 2 realities. You've got the administrative reality up top, showing an active obligation with over $173,000 seized. But then the forensic reality below, which is based on the court's own record, says the order was null. From the very beginning, the court literally logs that it was unable to enter the order. And yet enforcement went on for a decade based on a debt that, according to the official record, never legally existed. So how in the world do you fight a system that's enforcing a ghost order? A direct attack is pretty much designed to fail. And this is where a highly disciplined, super sophisticated legal strategy comes into play. The source calls it the judo flip protocol. It's basically a blueprint for using the system's own massive weight against itself. Let's look at why this is so hard. Normally, if you try to challenge a state court issue in a federal court, you run straight into this legal firewall. It's called the Rooker-Feldman Doctrine. It basically just says federal courts can't act like appeals courts for state judgments. So if you ask a federal court to overturn the state order, your case gets tossed. It's a trap. And this is the genius of the judo flip. The whole strategy isn't to argue that the state order is wrong. Nope. Instead, the argument is that state officials defied their own court's official record. You see the difference? The lawsuit isn't about correcting the state's decision. It's about holding officials accountable for ignoring it. And just like that, the state's own weight gets turned into a massive federal liability. And the result of this disciplined protocol is what you see right here, a three-way checkmate. The state gets put in a totally impossible position. In discovery, they have to respond. So if they produce an order, it's going to contradict their own record. That's fraud. If they say, oh, we have a secret order, well, that's a due process violation. And if they admit there is no order, that's theft under color of law. Every single possible answer confirms a constitutional breach. Game over. So all of this, the four tests, the glitch in the system, the legal checkmate, it brings us right back to our central philosophical question: what is truth? Is it the sincerity of your own personal conviction, or is it the cold, hard, documented reality sitting in an official record? And that leaves us with this question. When one person's deeply held, totally sincere belief in their 100% truth smashes head-on into a paper trail that tells a completely different story, what are we supposed to make of all that? It's a question that goes way beyond just this one case, and it really forces us to think about how we define truth itself when we're staring at two realities that simply cannot coexist.